Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
The Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
At Clinton Yates, the bad guy's back. Get your tweets on right now. The guys are out trying to get their lives saved. We all know Irma is trying to take over the southern part of this nation, has already wiped out a couple different places on this map. So we're chasing to see if Stugotz or Dan will let us know what they're doing. But in the meantime, your man Clinton Yates is in the building. You better deal with it. You know the rules. If you come incorrect in my mentions, I will embarrass you in front of your friends and your family, and I will not apologize. That said, it's just me today. And since I'm a big boy and can deal with your nonsense, please do keep the how much you hate me tweets rolling, and I got to do something for these 3 hours, and there's only one football game today. Speaking of, there's a football game today. I just mentioned that. Did you hear that? Good. We're going to work on listening comprehension today, kiddos. So let's follow along. The Chiefs play the Pats in an interesting Thursday night game. A game that you could say, if you actually like football, you might actually care about. A game that has some level of, I don't know, importance on the AFC if you actually believe there are teams that can compete with the Patriots. Do I believe that? I don't know. They got a guy by the name of Tom Brady. They don't have a guy by the name of Julian Edelman anymore. They do have a guy by the name of Danny Amendola. And because that offense just plugs and plays like so many Apple products that you buy for no reason, just because you want to have them, there were people who thought that this was going to be one of the most explosive offenses in the history of the NFL this year. I'm not necessarily one of those people. But there are some question marks with the Chiefs. Alex Smith, is this the year that he's the guy? What are they going to do with him as far as the rest of his career going forward? But if you've come to hear me talk NFL football, you've come to the wrong show. Number one, because it's the Dan Le Batard Show. And number two, because I don't really care that much about football. Tweets are coming in already. I hope you get whipped out by Irma at Clinton Yates. That's not a good tweet. Rooting for ill will amongst people is not a good thing. But here's the deal. We got to talk about Thursday Night Football and the abomination that it is. All football isn't good football. Some of y'all don't seem to understand this. And the thing that the NFL did well for so long was that they monopolized one day of the week. You've seen the movie Concussion. I think it's my man Paul Giamatti who plays whatever character says that. The NFL owns an entire day of the week. That's true. It's on Sunday. They ain't no part of it. Some of y'all like to hang out in church on Sunday and pray to God and so forth and have fellowship and community. I understand that. Some of us get that through football. But, you know, there's Monday Night Football, obviously, which is a different brand in itself. But Thursday has introduced an interesting element that I don't necessarily love for two reasons. Number one, Thursday is sort of an awkward day of the week because I used to like Thursday college football. You know, for whatever reason, I have many memories of Louisville playing Florida State on Thursday nights. Maybe there was one of those games. Maybe there were two. Maybe Louisville beat them in one they probably weren't supposed to, but I feel like I have ACC Thursday Night Football memories on my brain. Those may or may not be real. But secondarily is that it messes up the balance of NFL football. The short weeks, that stuff matters eventually over time. And there's a reason why all those games were so bad last year. Because Thursday Night Football became that thing that you did because you sort of had to, and you didn't want to miss out on the possibility that you just biffed a game that you could have easily watched because you didn't have anything else going on simply because it was on a Thursday. I'm going to read from one of my homegirls' articles. Her name is Charlotte Wilder. If you don't know her, you should check her out. She writes for SB Nation. And last year she wrote something I thought was very applicable. Headline, congratulations, you just survived a season of Thursday Night Football. Deck, it wasn't pretty, but there were some memorable moments. Now look, first of all, I knew that Thursday Night Football, was going to be a problem last year when that whole uniform thing became a situation. Because if you have to have a uniform gimmick in order to sell an NFL football game, you've already got a problem. It's like going to a theme party. Theme parties are cool, but theme parties are for people who don't actually know how to throw parties. Like if it's not Halloween or if it's not Christmas, your theme party is just a lame excuse for you to fly out to flesh out some weird fantasy you have that may or may not be awkward in front of all your friends, which is fine. I like a good theme party. I'm trying to think of the last good theme party I went to. But very rarely is the juice worth the squeeze on a theme party. So that aside, you got this color rush situation where all the teams look borderline god-awful. I mean, there were so few of these that were actually executed well. The Vikings come to mind. The Giants were pretty good with the all-white blickies. But I can't even think of any of the color rush joints that were actually worth looking at. So off the top, you've got a sort of a bizarre odd night of the week, at least as far as NFL is concerned. You've got a bad uniform situation. And you've got teams on short weeks that have less prep. So we're going to go through some of these games. Because I don't really remember most of these games because I didn't watch a whole lot of them. Week 1, Broncos-Panthers. Broncos won 21-20. You might remember that because Cam Newton got hit a bunch of times in the head and nothing was called. That was weird. Week 2, Jets. The Jets beat the Bills 37-31. The year before that, colorblind people couldn't tell the two teams apart because of their color block situation. Week 3, the Pats smoked the Texans 27-0. Good one, guys. Week 4, the Bengals. The Bengals beat the Dolphins 22-7. Non-game. Week 5, Cards, Niners 33-21. I mean, you can tell already how boring this is. We're at week 5. Nothing of note has happened. Week 6, Chargers, Bronx 21-13. We're halfway through. Sort of. Week 7, Packers beat the Bears 36-10. Another non-game. But Cutler didn't even play. Which gets me back to something else I want to talk about, which is my fantasy team. That's a joke. Don't ever talk to about your fantasy team to anybody who doesn't know yours in the league. That's rule 1. Rule 2, though, is the same as rule 1. It's like Fight Club. Week 8, Titans beat the Jags 36-22. Excuse me. There will be a reasonable amount of coughing, and I have no cough button here, so we're just going to have to deal with that. Week 9, Falcons put up 43 on the Bucs and won 43-28. Week 10, the Ravens beat the Browns 28-7. I sort of remember this game, but I sort of don't. It tells you everything you need to know. Week 11, Panthers 23, Saints 20. It's a division game. Pretty good game. And we'll get to the rest of these later in the show. The point is this. You've actually got a decent amount of good football tonight between the Chiefs and the Patriots. The Patriots. I'm going to start calling the Patriots from here on out. So we might want to watch the game today.
You're engulfed in the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Weather Channel reporter and fitness enthusiast Jim Cantori. Jim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm all right. I got to say that I get, as a person that lives in the East Coast who doesn't get the usual amount of what I'll call extreme weather circumstances and lives in a pretty four seasons climate, I don't necessarily know always how to process this sort of stuff. So we're coming off of Harvey. We're moving right into Irma. If you're in the part of the country that's affected by this, how do you deal in terms of how you prepare in a general way for your daily life for this time of year?
Well, daily life as it's known, if this thing comes ashore, is going to be completely changed for a lot of people. As a matter of fact, even before it comes ashore, it's completely changed. So, instead of the normal routine, getting up, going to Starbucks, going to work, you're getting up, you're writing down a list of things that you need to prepare for a hurricane, whether that means you're sheltering in place or evacuating if asked to by the Weather Service. It's just a whole different world. And obviously, if you look at what's going on down in Florida right now, it's kind of it's like the Wild Wild West down there. I mean, everybody's trying to get their supplies. They're trying to get gas. They're trying to get out of harm's way in the evacuation zones. Because, this is potentially the biggest threat for South Florida since Andrew. And it's at least twice as big in terms of the size.
You're referring to Hurricane Andrew there. For those listeners who are younger listeners who don't know or remember what that's about, can you please describe sort of what the
Hurricane Andrew, 25 years ago, Cat 5, coming in late August to Homestead, Florida, with just lunar landscape type damage where it looks like a bomb went off. Now, I can't tell you if this is going to be a Cat 4 or 5, but it certainly has a chance of being. And whether all the difference in the world where this thing comes ashore. If it comes ashore in Homestead, then that means Miami is in harm's way. If it comes, and everybody on the northern side of that storm is going to get a tremendous amount of destructive wind potential. There are going to be storm surge components. And then if this thing scoots up the coast, there could be damage even on the west side of the state because of the size. There could be damage in Miami and Orlando, possibly Jacksonville, possibly, Savannah, Georgia, Charleston, South Carolina. So it's not just Florida storm. It's not just a coastal event. It's an inland event as well.
We're talking with Jim Cantore of the Weather Channel here on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Clinton Yates filling in for Dan Le Batard. Where are you now?
The good thing is that, the NFL thought well enough, obviously, of this situation to move the game with the Dolphins. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
Plus, college football has been moved up on Saturday in Florida. So, they're obviously looking at this and the potential and also what's going on in other people's worlds. So
let me ask you this, though.
To get people out of harm's way is huge.
Is it possible that, obviously it's possible, but, are they expecting that this is going to be more than sort of a 1 week removal? Look, taking a game out of Miami for a Sunday is one thing, but if this sounds as bad as I think it does, there's going to be ramifications here beyond just week 1 of the NFL season.
That's certainly a worst case scenario, yes.
Where are you now?
In terms of nailing exactly where the center goes right now, we can't do that. It's not within our capabilities as meteorologists. All we can do is present you with a scenario, potentially the worst case scenario, and tell you that's what we need you to prepare for.
Where are you now? Where are you headed?
If you don't, you could die. I'm in Atlanta, but I will be heading to South Florida this afternoon because to me, some of the worst potential in terms of damaging wind, if this storm landfalls, is going to be in South Florida.
All right. Well, I'll ask. This is the last thing I'll ask you.
Sorry, man. Don't mean to bring the show down here.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm actually glad, but that you actually have been sobering about this because I think a lot of people sort of this is why I was saying this in terms of where I am. You see one piece of hurricane coverage, you've seen 1,000 in people's minds, but connecting that to what it means for the on-the-ground life and how that affects not just one spot situation in terms of a storm, but the cumulative effect of living in a place like this is sort of what I was wondering about. And it sounds like from your standpoint, not just from a work standpoint, but from a basic human standpoint, that's not easy as it builds up over the years. No.
Life, as let's say many people are doing it today, not today necessarily, but let's say 2 days ago, it has already changed. And it's going to change for the foreseeable future with this thing. And even if it comes, when it comes ashore, it's going to change for several days, maybe weeks after that. These things are the big bad ones are incredibly disrupting to life, and they're disruptive for, in this case, the potential for millions of people.
All right, he's Jim Cantore. He's the Weather Channel reporter. Stay safe out there, man.
Thank you.
See, very intrigued by the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Hi, everyone. Stugotz here. Support for the Dan Le Batard Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you are confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you the same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you are getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz. That's rocketmortgage.com/Stugotz, Stugotz, equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030.
The Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Sal Paolantonio is going to join us. Sal, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for calling.
Sal, let's just break down very quickly what happened here. I'm filling in for Dan and Stu because they are evacuating as a result of the Hurricane Irma situation, and I'm where I am doing the show, and I turned on my television, and you were on television in Foxborough holding a sneaker on television.
Yeah.
It was a very cool-looking sneaker, and I could not figure out what it was, so I said, hey, can we call Sal Pal so he can tell me what that was he was holding? What was that sneaker?
It's the Robert Kraft special put out by Nike. You know, Kraft walks around in his blue suit with his Nike sneakers on, so in commemoration of the 5th Super Bowl title. A little windy here because I'm outside on the field. Sorry about that. In commemoration of the 5th Super Bowl title, they gave him a special edition, red, white, and blue. Has a little gray in there.
Mm-hmm.
Sneaker. Yeah, very nice. And all the proceeds benefit the boys and girls clubs of the city of Boston. So I took out my MasterCard, popped it down there, bought one, gave it to my wife. Yeah.
Oh, so that was the Sal Pal edition. That wasn't just one they threw to you to put on the air.
No, I did my part for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. And, you know, the Crafts are very good to us here.
Yeah.
Hospitality is tremendous that we get here. You know, so, you know, I wanted to support his charity. And the sneakers are cool. I tried them on.
I was going to say,
great.
From a style standpoint, is this one that might enter your regular rotation beyond just you supporting the charity?
Absolutely. They fit perfectly. I did not purchase one for myself because the only one they had in my size was not available because they were selling out like crazy. But later on during the day, I was told they will have my size. But I did buy one for my wife. And yeah, they were definitely comfy. More of like a relaxed fit, you know, fashion statement kind of a shoe.
Like a Saturday chores thing or like a barbecue cookout thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Little barbecue cookout. Okay. Maybe, you know, on the boardwalk, taking a stroll. You know, I'm not going to be wearing them, running with the fellas down on West 4th Street or anything like that. That's not happening.
When was the last time you actually bought a pair of sneakers, Sal Paolantonio?
I thought you were going to say to me, when was the last time you were running on West 4th Street playing ball?
I just assumed that was
because I know you know where that is.
Oh, the Cage. Of course I know.
The Cage by NYU, okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Been a long time, brother. Been a very, very long time.
All right, we're talking with Sal Paolantonio, ESPN NFL reporter on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I'm not going to make you answer that question about sneakers. We can actually switch to football.
No. When's the last time I buy them all the time?
Really?
I got 3 daughters. I got a granddaughter who I love to buy sneakers for. I take her out sneaker shopping all the time. Drives my daughter crazy. You're like, let's go. When we go with Papa, we're going to buy sneakers. That's what we do.
Nice. Okay, that is good to know. I hope to see you on an upcoming like, you know, what are they called? Like Flight Club, where you're at an actual sneakerhead store buying these $1,000 pairs of shoes. But I don't expect to see that time. So.
Okay, good.
That said, what are the players saying about Julian Edelman not playing this season? I imagine it's a big talk amongst the Pats locker room and in general among fans in New England.
Well, you know, initially there was devastation because Edelman and Brady are so close. And Edelman is such an important part of what they do. This is a read option passing game, empty set, spread offense, quick strike. Nobody ran it better than Brady and Edelman. I quoted an AFC defensive coach yesterday on SportsCenter saying that basically Edelman's the best option route runner probably in the history of the league. He said all they did when they studied the Patriots getting ready for a game, Clinton, was watch film to decipher the nonverbal communication at the line of scrimmage that went on between those two guys, because they were so challenging and so productive for so long. Wow. You know the numbers, right?
Yeah.
38 targets on third down, more than, the other next three wide receivers combined for the Pats. So, and the last time they played the Chiefs, Edelman had 10 catches for 100 yards. So they're adjusting, but that's what the Patriots do. And Gronkowski will fill some of that role. Brandon Cooks will fill some of that role. Chris Hogan will fill some of that role in different ways. But they're playing a Chiefs defense that doesn't blitz, right? Bob Sutton's defense last year was last in the league in blitz percentage. So when you're facing a team that doesn't blitz, you're going to have running backs open in the flat.
Right.
The hot routes to the running backs in the flat. And who's better at throwing those than Brady to James White? So I think this is a James White ball game. I really do.
We're talking with Sal Paolantonio, ESPN NFL reporter on the show, Penzo Performance Line. He's live in Foxborough for the opening night of the NFL. I want to ask you this from a procedural standpoint. It's the opening night of the NFL. They're obviously the defending champions. What are we going to see from a presentation viewpoint in terms of what they're going to do ahead of the game?
Well, they're going to unfurl the championship banner a half an hour beforehand. I think there's a flyover, although I haven't been able to confirm that. It's always dependent on the weather. But they'll have the fireworks, and it'll be a big thing for the fans here. There's no question about that, and that's the critical thing. It's for the fans. Brady said during the week, all of our goals are in front of us. I don't even think the players will be out on the field when they unfurl the banner. And I don't know if you were watching the NFL Films piece last night that aired. They do such a great job, called Do Your Job 2, Part 2.
Right.
At the very, very end of it, very telling interview with Belichick, where he says, we're still chasing it. It's not done. We're still chasing it. Meaning, they're recalibrating for the next championship. So they have that mentality here. But there's also a tangential thing going on, with Roger Goodell.
Right.
And that's, for the fans, that's big, because I confirmed with the NFL that Goodell will be here. I also confirmed that he will not be sitting in Bob Kraft's box. He will not be sitting in Bob Kraft's box like he did when he came here unannounced for the preseason game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because as I reported on SportsCenter last night, the fan reaction on social media is not something that I can repeat on ESPN family of networks.
Right.
The overall negative reaction was bad, and they aren't going to be handing out 70,000 of these towels. You see these towels. Everybody's seen these towels, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that's that. And they got a billboard and the whole schmear. As somebody said to me in the organization yesterday, quote, Bob Kraft has moved on. It's apparent the fan base has not.
That's typically how that happens. He's Sal Paolantonio. He's an ESPN NFL reporter, and he buys a lot of sneakers for people not named Sal. Thank you, Sal.
You got it, man.
All right. Before he came on, by the way, those sneakers look cool. I'm not going to lie. I realize that they're the old man specials, but those look pretty dope.
You're engulfed in the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Fifth ring, blase blah. One for the thumb or whatever it is. But here's the deal. Tom Brady's getting old, y'all. He doesn't have his main guy. His guy that he can apparently just bat his eyes at. He knows what route to run. Sal Powell talking about nonverbals there was getting a little steamy. I liked it. He can just look over, and they know what's going to happen. That's a relationship level that I envy, if I'm being quite honest. Anyway, the question is whether or not, now that they've gotten to the top and they've done so much, what's the motivation level like? Tom Brady talked to WEEI's Kirk and Callahan, those guys, about the Patriots and what they've got going on this season as far as their drive.
we'll be able to write our own chapter, and hopefully it's a good one, but it's going to be determined by the work ethic that we do and the trust that we have in one another, and we're going to build it over the course of the year. And that's why we're practicing. That's why we're in West Virginia. That's why we're getting ready to go practice against another good team, because we're trying to get better, and we need it. Hopefully we can be the best version of this team. We'll see how that shakes out.
Okay, cool. Another boring take for one Thomas Brady about this season. But let me tell you what I'm looking forward to. And understand in which context I'm looking forward to this in. I don't have a problem with Boston fans necessarily. What I have an issue with is Boston fans who actually believe that people across the nation have more of a problem with them than other fan bases. Because that's not the case. There's a certain type of person, me being one of them, that in their actual, I'm joking, it's not me being one of them, but that in their actual hearts of hearts needs to believe that people dislike them when it's not necessarily true. All this nonsense reading your tweets, it's a bit of a bit. I don't actually really care. It's just, more fun to do the show this way. But in Boston, there is this weird victimhood complex of fans. And by the way, you all hating on me does not make me think I'm a victim. I'm the one who gets to yell here, so keep it up. I enjoy it. But people think that there's some problem that there is being a Boston fan. Oh, woe is me. Everybody thinks we're cheating and nobody thinks we deserve it and blah, 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 blah. So there's like a side element of talking about Boston fans that unnecessarily gets caught up in a bunch of other nonsense that I don't necessarily buy into. It just annoys me on a different level. But as far as the internal structure of Pats and Boston fans, as an outsider, I am actively looking forward to the demise of Tom Brady. Why? Not because I care about who wins or loses. Everybody knows this. But because the fractured world that will be Patriots Nation when it comes time to make a decision about what's going on with him and whether or not he should go forward is going to be one of the most epic dynasty falls we're ever going to get to see. And again, on some level, take the football out of it. It'll just be fascinating to see what this fan base is going to do when the Golden Boy has to go. And I don't mean the hypotheticals of, oh, well, yeah, Garoppolo's in the building. It'll all work out. Or whatever the heck they try to do. But when it actually comes down to it, that's going to be a legitimate issue for a lot of people. Because the Pats aren't in the business of just saying, oh, would you like to be carried out? Would you like a parting gift? Would you like a loot bag? Like at some kid's birthday party? To let you know that we appreciate your time here? They're not in the business of that. They're in the business of cutting people loose before it's a problem. But you can't do that with Brady. You can't just say, nice to know you. Thanks for the memories. You can't do that. There has to be a succession plan that for those of you who watch Game of Thrones, sometimes it's not always end nicely. I can't wait to see Pats fans rip themselves apart when they know full well that this guy should be benched at some point. I'm not saying that's now, not remotely. But when that day comes, it's going to be fun to watch. And more importantly, Pats fans, when that day comes, you should be happy it came. You know why? Because I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and tell you that you're a reasonable person. And when the day comes when you understand that Brady's got to go, you'll be able to rationally and calmly say, man, I got to watch that for that long. And it bore that much fruit. But that would require calm, rational thinking, which is not exactly what fanatics do. It's not what you're asked to do. That's not what you even want to do, which is exactly why it's going to be beautiful when it happens. Can you imagine? Guys coming over the hill, Braveheart style. Yelling and screaming. Their loyalty to Tom Brady. Then you got the other side who's just ready to move on. Oh, it's going to be beautiful. That said, tonight ought to be interesting. Goodell showing up. Kraft's going to be there rocking his new kicks. I imagine the boos will be thunderous isn't even the word. But I also don't want to make jokes about natural disasters right now, so I'm not going to do that. I might be more interested in this pregame ceremony than I am in the football game because I think the Pats are going to smoke the Chiefs. I just kind of want to see what this banner looks like. I kind of want to see what Bob Kraft has to say.
See, very intrigued by the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, you know, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
The Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Joining us right now, Trey Wingo, who's back in Bristol after being at the U.S. Open for the last 10 days. Trey, I have an important question for you.
An important answer for you, then.
The U.S. Open, first time it has been an All-American women's semifinal since 1981. I was born in 1981. What were you doing in 1981?
Graduated from high school, so go blank yourself.
Okay. What was the Trey Wingo daily routine like in 1981?
In 1981, as same as it is today. Get up and try and find a way to move ahead, baby. Pretty simple.
All right, well, let's talk about this a little bit in terms of the sort of importance that this means to, I don't want to say American tennis, but sort of the tennis world in general from the Americans fan standpoint. What do you think about how this women's draw has shaken out?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, look, as you said, first time it's happened there since 81, first time it's happened at any Grand Slam since 1985 at Wimbledon. And the amazing thing is this is happening when Serena Williams on the bench, you know, who has been the standard bearer for so long in women's tennis in this country. So that's the most important thing I think this means, is that, you know, Venus is 35 and she's still kicking, and Serena is 35, and I'm sure she'll be fine when she comes back. But the future is very, very bright. Sloane Stephens, who had come back from that horrible foot surgery after the Olympics in 2016, she's on track. Coco Vandeweghe at 24 looks like the former U.S. Open junior champ is finally fulfilling that promise. And then you have Madison Keys, who, by the way, guys, out of all four, may be the odds-on to win the whole thing. So that's the best thing about this from an American tennis perspective, is that the queen isn't there, and yet the American tennis is still dominant.
One of the things that they asked us on Around the Horn yesterday was, does this fairly signal a resurgence of women's American tennis, or is this just sort of an anomaly in the overall context? I said it is obviously a resurgence. If you've got 3 to 4 household names making it this far that are not the Williams sisters, what do you think about that overall in terms of American women's tennis?
No, it's great. I mean, look, there's nothing bad that's going to come out of this. I mean, literally nothing, because all of these women that are in the final four are marketable, interesting, and can really pound the tennis ball. I mean, Coco Vandeweghe, I mean, she will hurt people, you know. I mean, and she loves to play to the crowd, and you know, she got fired up there. You know, her uncle is Kiki Vandeweghe. Her dad played for the Knicks, so she comes obviously from a great lineage of athletic families. But most of these people do these days, you know. Madison Keys was someone that was spotted when she was 12 years old, and she's had to deal with a wrist surgery earlier this year. And, you know, the first half of your year was nothing compared to what she's done. And Venus, you know, it's been 20 years since she made her debut in 1997, made it to the semifinals, and 20 years later at 37, here she is again. So it's really remarkable.
We're talking with Trey Wingo, who's back in Bristol after being at the U.S. Open for the past week or so much. Talk to me a little bit more about Venus Williams, though. I mean, it's remarkable, yes, but it's almost a little bit more than that, I would say. 20 years? We don't see this that often. And what was the vibe like there in terms of the reverence for her experience and her success?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, she's one win away at the age of 37, or she started the year 36. One win away from being in 3 Grand Slam finals at the age of 37. I mean, that's ridiculous. She lost in the Australian Open final to Serena. She made it to the Wimbledon final, and I really thought she was going to take the Wimbledon final against Muguruza. And here she is again. Sloane Stephens and Madison Keys both said it. And Coco said it too, actually. Like, it's awesome that we're all here, but for us to be here and playing and competing against Venus, the person we've looked up to all these years, makes it even more fun. And there was the whole issue with Venus at Wimbledon about the car accident and what may or may not happen. So she was very guarded, obviously, for a lot of reasons with that going on. But once that was cleared up, it's like a weight has been lifted from her, and you can clearly see her smiling, and she does the victory pirouette after every match. I mean, the respect that she commands, not only from the other players in the locker room, but from every single spectator that walks into that arena at Arthur Ashe, is absolutely remarkable and palpable. You can just feel it.
Before we switch gears to the Cowboys, because I know you're a fan, I do want to ask you about the men's draw. What did you think about the men's draw in terms of how it shook out, not just the post-match last night?
Well, one thing, it was really bad because you had Roger and Rafa on the same side meeting if they were going to meet. And once again, they're not going to meet. They've never met at the U.S. Open, which is ridiculous if you think about it. They were going to meet in the semis and not the finals. And there was some discussion that once Andy Murray pulled out the night before the tournament, maybe they could sort of reshuffle the draw and put Rafa and Roger on other sides. But this has been a really interesting men's draw because the top 5 players from last year going into this U.S. Open weren't there because of injuries and a variety of other things, whether it's Djokovic or Milos Raonic or Kei Nishikori and now Andy Murray. So all those guys weren't there. So it was wide open, obviously, on the bottom half of the draw. And we were all hoping, selfishly, you want to see great play great. You're hoping, it's like when the Colts and the Patriots were dominating the AFC, you wanted those two guys to meet in the playoffs. So we're hoping for Rafa and Roger. But, Roger injured his back in Montreal and had to withdraw from a tournament in Cincinnati. So he has never really been right this entire tournament. So it doesn't surprise me that he lost. It surprises me how he lost to Del Potro, because I'm telling you, 2 days ago, guys, Juan Martín Del Potro could have auditioned for The Walking Dead. I mean, he was having a battle of fever, about 103, and he looked awful. But somehow he found a way in that epic comeback against Dominic Thiem. And then once he took the first set, I think he felt like, I can do this. And he really had Roger on the defensive the entire night.
All right, let's get to it. Switching gears.
Do it.
Cowboys, week 1, got the guy back. As a fan, do you think, or are you satisfied with the balance between what we'll just call the morality play of what may or may not have happened with Zeke and getting him back for one game before the suspension? How do you feel about that in terms of what the potential lesson learned is or not for not just the team, but Elliott as well?
Well, look, I mean, the Cowboys as a team, when you're talking about a morality play, that could be an 8-part 30 for 30, if we want to be honest about it.
Yeah.
Going back to the Cowboys of the 90s. We had Darren Woodson on the set when we were in Mexico for the Mexico City game this year. And I said, can you imagine if social media existed when the 90s Cowboys were around? And he's like, I mean, just think about that, man. Think about that. The White House and everything else that went on. I mean, if anything would have broken the internet, that would have broken the internet. So I have no idea about the morality play when it comes to the Cowboys, because they keep doing these things and they keep finding themselves in these positions. But at the end of the day, as someone who's watched this team for so many years, I'm sort of ambivalent about the idea of how it affects fandom, because I think he's going to have to serve the games one way or the other. Now, they can try and push it as long as they want, and they can try and go the Tom Brady route, where, remember, Brady was supposed to be suspended for 4 games in 2015, and eventually through legal routes it happened in 2016. But I think that's where Zeke as a candidate to have this thing suspended or reduced or put off is kind of screwed, because they've already went through the legal route with Brady, and the legal precedent is now set that, maybe all this stuff doesn't add up, but at the end of the day, you gave the guy the power to do this, so really nothing we can do. And I don't know how the Cowboys or Zeke's reps get around that. I mean, how do you get around that, which has already been taking place last year, and said, all this may or may not have happened, and they may have screwed it up, but you guys gave them the power to do it, so nothing we can do. I don't know how they get around that one.
Last thing I'll ask you, what do you think about the matchup tonight? Pats Chiefs, unveiling the banner. Goodell's going to be there. It's probably going to be a mess.
Well, as we always say in certain situations, we'd like to thank the Chiefs for their participation in the Thursday night opener and wish them all the best future endeavors. Look, stranger things have happened, but, home teams with this sort of pattern that's been on since 2004 where the Super Bowl champs get to, like you said, unfurl the banner. Home teams are 11-1. The only loss was the Giants a few years ago to the Cowboys. Yes, the Ravens lost after their Super Bowl, but remember that game was in Denver because the Orioles wouldn't give up the parking and move their game, so they couldn't have it in Baltimore, which is just awful. So, look, the Patriots at home, with Roger Goodell, by the way, they're in attendance. The crowd might be a little saucy. I think the Chiefs can have a good season, but I don't think that's the reason they're going to have a good season.
He's Trey Wingo. You can find him across the family of networks in multiple regards. Thank you, Trey.
You got it, guys. Take care.
You're engulfed in the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
Joining us right now, though, most importantly, is the man who makes all this possible, and the reason why we're here right now is Dan Le Batard. Dan, you have obviously been in, I don't want to say panic mode, but what would just be hurricane mode in general. Where are you at right now from a psychological standpoint of moving out, as well as a physical standpoint in terms of where you are?
Yeah, we're in the middle of evacuating. Thank you, by the way, for taking care of the show for us while we're not there, as you've done repeatedly lately. We appreciate it, genuinely. We are in a position. I've never seen South Florida quite this way, right? It's fine now. It's beautiful here. If you came here now and didn't know anything about forecasts, you would say that the weather and everything is beautiful. But what's happening with the people is crazy to me because this has never happened before. South Floridians can be pretty laissez-faire about this stuff because we've been through a lot of them. I mean, even Hurricane Andrew, I slept through it because it was 20 minutes away from me. But the size of this thing and the path of this thing has people behaving in a way that I haven't seen down here before. Like in Houston, people are coming together in disaster, but before the disaster, it's a little bit of everybody is fending for themselves. So you have people fighting over sand and water and gas and fist fights and long lines and people, trying to get out of here, and the airports are crazy. I've never seen any of that before, and I'm guessing that that's partially because of everything we've been watching in Houston lately, and now the video that's coming from these islands where you see this storm is unlike anything we've ever seen.
Dan, if I may ask, I mean, you're obviously a South Florida native. Do you think from your understanding of the folks around you that y'all are sort of ready for this on a psychological level? You talked about people trying to beat each other up in grocery stores. Some regions can handle this, some cannot in terms of just how people treat each other.
Well, it's not everybody, right? Everybody's behaving differently. There are plenty of people. I saw plenty of people refusing to leave their area, right on the beach in a mandatory evacuation area. There's nothing between them and this storm, a catastrophic storm, except the beach. Like there's literally nothing between them protecting them, and they're staying there because, they think that it might just be like all the others. So there are some people who are calm about it, but there is a little bit of hysteria here. Like if you just saw the gas lines and the things happening at Home Depot and just the number of fights happening literally at gas stations over gas and lines and stuff, you'd see what I was talking about.
Dan Le Batard joins us on the Dan Le Batard Show, Inception, today on ESPN Radio. I'm Clinton Yates filling in here. So what is you guys' plan? I don't want to get too personal here, but what are you guys doing? Where's Stu? Where's the squad? How's it going? What's the game plan?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. I mean, we're shuttering up. That's a lot of people are shuttering up, and a lot of people are leaving. Like, a lot of people are leaving the state because the cone of this thing, you can't even just drive to Orlando because Orlando's facing a similar panic because of the size of this thing. So if you drive to Orlando, you're not necessarily safe. You might be driving into the storm. You might be driving with a bunch of other panicked people, in traffic, and there are only a few ways out of here because it's a peninsula. If there's an accident or something on one of those highways, a lot of people are going to be waiting for a long time while in the mode of fleeing. So, it's just, man, we get tired down here of the fear-mongering and the weathermen who are weather terrorists. But this one, everything about this one feels different. And I say that as someone who's lived here all my life and never experienced anything quite like this in terms of fear.
Have you been able to get your eye on anything in the sports world, anything that sort of, bubbled up to you care about it? I know the NFL starts tonight. There's obviously the situation with the, moving the game in the NFL and all that. But what has caught your eye in the midst of all of this hubbub?
Well, the Michael Bennett stuff, the idea that he would be the one to be the victim of this at this time when he is, at his core, if you've ever heard him talk about anything, he is committed to this cause in ways that are bigger and longer than Colin Kaepernick ever was. Like, this is a man who is working on a book and a documentary about this kind of stuff, specifically wants to tackle race-related stuff in a book and in a documentary. And so the fact that this would happen to him, of all people, it's fascinating to watch a lot of what's happening around that situation. You know, the initial response, I got a lot of, well, I don't believe him. That story doesn't sound real. And then the video came out, and then the goalposts move a little bit, and it was like, well, where's the gun to his head? And then, you know, some of the video seems to show gun to his head, and it'll keep moving as people get entrenched in their positions on this. And some people think simply that it's police brutality, and some people think that it's an absolute police situation where the police are always clean on this stuff, and that's where the fights start. Like, so all of this stuff is always going to be interesting to me.
He's Dan Le Batard. He's the host of this show. He's built an empire down there in South Florida, and let's hope it all doesn't get washed away. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
You can listen to the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz, 10 to 1 Eastern on ESPN Radio, and you can watch on